everybody. I'm Soben Pin. Welcome to this week's episode. Here with me, I have Jim Campanini, the former editor of The Sun, and he retired last November, just back at studio for the first time. Welcome, Jim.
Welcome, Soben. I'm glad to be here. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
Yes, and I retired November of 2018, so I've been retired for over 1 year.
Over 1 year.
And I've been enjoying it very much.
Well, welcome back, coming back to the spotlight.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't, I'm a private citizen now. So whenever someone calls me, and I'm just happy that you gave me the phone call or something. I'm just John Q. Public now.
Oh, you're being too humble. I think on the contrary. So today, I think we're just gonna have a chat.
Okay.
So life of retirement, how has it been for you? You were telling me you go to bed at like 8:15 when your cats go to bed?
Yes, I get up very, very early, and I go to bed early. So I walk. I never had the opportunity before. I walk 3 miles a day. So, but since I left being the editor of the Sun and working there, I worked at the Sun for 30 years before I retired. I started my own communications company called Pergola Communications. It's named after the pergola I have in my backyard.
Yes,
where
you
I
were
sit in.
Me.
Yep, I sit in during the summer. I read my books, and Mary Lee comes down. That's my wife, and we might have a little wine and some cheese. Invite some friends over. So, and I basically did it for my wine business. I was a wine educator. I was teaching adult education wine classes. I write my weekly wine column on both the Boston Herald and the Lowell Sun. I'm still doing that, and I go to a lot of seminars. I teach, and I do some, private wine tastings. So it's been really fun, a good education, and I'm very, very happy doing that. It's a passion of mine. Wine is a passion of mine through all my travels. And in this past December, I went to Portugal on a wine writer's trip with 5 other journalists from across the country. It was just fabulous.
So it doesn't sound like you're retired after all? Did you just add yourself more work?
Well, the thing is, you can pick and choose now what you want to do. When I was at the newspaper, it was almost like a 24/7 job, 7 days a week, because I live, Lowell is my hometown. I lived in the community. And my wife would complain that I never stopped working. So it was good to take a step back, and just go into a different phase of my life. And I think that's what people have. They have a problem with that sometimes when they retire. They work all their lives. They build up a habit when they go to work, when they come home. They don't see their family, on a regular basis. And that's an education. Wait till you retire, and then you're with your partner all the time. Because think about it, when you work, I would only see my wife really about 2 or 3 hours a day, right? Because I'm working all day and stuff. Now you're with each other 24/7. It's like you're back to dating, You're learning all over again. Who is this person, And so it's been fun. Mary Lee's a gardener. She's also started doing her watercolor paintings. She loves to cook. I like to drink wine. We both like to drink wine, so we do a lot of pairings. We have, friends we entertain. So the things you didn't have time to do before, it's been a pleasure to reconnect with people and friends, go to the movies. I hadn't been to the movie theater in years. The first week I was retired, I got my movie pass card, only $5 for senior citizens to go to a movie. So I said, wow, this is great. I went to the movie, it was 10:30 in the morning, and there was only myself and a friend in the movie. We had the whole movie theater to ourselves.
Oh my gosh.
It was fantastic.
Now you make us envy you. Well, sounds very good.
Well, I just hope that everybody who's worked hard and can have the chance to do the things that they really want and enjoy, the second phase of their life,
So you love to go to bed early, around the time your cat goes to bed, and you wake up early, and you love to also read. Besides writing, what are you reading?
So right now I'm reading a book on Lincoln in the press, Abraham Lincoln in the press.
Tell me about it.
Well, it's written by a man named Hosler. Very, very interesting. It's a dense book, and meaning it's thick. It's a lot of notations in it. But what we see taking place right now in the American political landscape, you know, with Donald Trump, Democrats, Republicans, everybody pointing the finger at each other, political accusations and all this other stuff. The different news channels have become somewhat partisan. Fox this way, CNN, MSNBC this way. Just look back to 1840, okay, when Abraham Lincoln was first an attorney thinking about running for a state Senate seat in Illinois, okay, what it was like then. They only had newspapers to disseminate the news to the people of America. There were no cell phones. There was no television, okay. So what did they rely on? They relied on newspapers and handbills. And the press back then was as partisan as it is right now. In fact, Abraham Lincoln was a secret partner in a small weekly newspaper called the Sangamo Times, okay? He was a private partner. No one knew this, okay, that he was it. And he'd write stories about himself without saying it, okay, fictitious letters, and he'd attack other individuals who were in office. So he was part of the partisan press to basically, you know, cultivate and enhance his own positions and policies. So a lot of that took place, and newspapers were for the Whig Party, which was then there was no Republican Party, and there was a Federalist Party, which basically became the Democrat Party, the Federalists. John Adams, the president from Massachusetts, he was a Federalist. He was a member of the Federalist Party. So the Whigs eventually went out of business and became the Republican Party. The Federalist Party became the Democrat Party, and that's how, you know, it evolved. But it's a fascinating book because what used to take place between editors who were, you know, they used to basically pick sides. There was no objective press. I mean, you'd have to read, say you had a paper that endorsed candidates different from my paper. People would have to get both papers to try to find out the truth, you know? So, and back then, they you know, the thing of newspapers was different, the subscriptions, they used to call it the penny press. So they used to charge a penny for the newspaper to build up circulation, and it's an amazing story.
Do you think there were times when you were editor of the Lowell Sun you were competing with me?
No, no. I think it overlapped. I mean, you had a different constituency. You know, largely the Cambodian community, yes, where the Sun was, you know, representing the broader region and community. You know, we at the height of the Sun's circulation, which is about, I think we got up to about 56,000. That was in the late 80s, 1980s. I mean, we had a lot of reach. We used to go all the way down to Concord and all the way up to, you know, Nashua, Pelham and stuff like that. So
around the 80s, the community started to transform a lot, including a new immigrants, wave of new immigrants, of Cambodian refugees.
Yes.
And they came, thousands of them during that first decade. So as an editor during that time, and you know, looking back 30 years as an editor, there must have been a lot of things that you saw how the community grew and changed, and a lot of climate change as well. What do you think? What's your...
Well, yeah, I mean, Lowell became more and more, Lowell was already diverse. I mean, Lowell has always been a welcoming city to immigrants, as we know. The foundation was there between the Greek, the French Canadians, the Italians, the Hispanics. But that certainly after the Vietnam War, I mean, Chester Atkins was the congressman at the time, and I think there were a lot of resettlement programs. Lowell had already proved, I think, that it could assimilate new people and immigrants, and also Wang Industries was still in the city making computers. I mean, Wang used to employ 31,000 people worldwide, 19,000 right in Lowell. They had a lot of technician jobs as opposed to the computer jobs. So a lot of people found work. That was the straw that stirred Lowell's drink back then. Things were really booming. So I think a lot of that immigration from Southeast Asia came here, and good for Lowell that those people all became integrated right into the community. Now you get on second, third generations. They're on the city council. We have a state representative and Roddy Mom, two city councilors, Vesna Noom and Sakari Chow. So just like the Greeks before them, the Irish, everything else. Everybody is pushing forward, and as we know, we're going to find out in this next census, Lowell is likely to become a minority-majority community if it's not already that way now. The school system is. So it's the fabric of that life and that melting pot, and I think it's just further strengthened Lowell's cause as a good, a welcoming community, and I've seen a lot of the changes through the years, and I've adopted Lowell as my hometown. So
were you before?
Well, so when I first started at the Lowell Sun, I was living in Winthrop because my wife, Mary Lee, she was a flight attendant for TWA and later American Airlines. So we had to, she had to be there near the airport. She was flying international, where she'd, fly for 5 days, then be home for, 7 days. And then when we got married, I didn't like that. I didn't see my wife. So she started flying domestic. So she'd do these 2 or 3 day turnarounds. So then I didn't like the traffic, driving up to Lowell. So I said, Mary Lee, my friends are up in Lowell. I don't even know the neighbors here in Winthrop because I'm never here. I said, I'm going to probably buy a condo in downtown Lowell so I can stay here during the week. Then when you're home or whatever, we get together. So the Canal Place 3, the new building was being built. Jim McClutchy was building that, and they were beautiful. And I bought a condo to be closer to the Sun. The Sun at the time was in 15 Kearny Square. Then when we left 15 Kearny Square, it was even closer because of the Dutton Street. We moved to Dutton Street. So I lived there for about 3 years with her, going back and forth, and it was like being a bachelor again almost, But it was nice to be in the downtown, see the downtown developing, and I used to stop in. Adriana had her place on Middle Street there. There was the Italian, I forget the name of it, was the Italian place. Riccardo's Trattoria was in its prime. It was really, the city was really buzzing and stuff. It was nice, to be a part of the downtown scene and stuff. Then, when Mary Lee retired from the airlines, well, she didn't want to be down there. I didn't want her down there. She said, now it's time to consider, moving up to Lowell. And then she got a job in marketing at the Saints campus. Saints was still a standalone hospital. And then she commuted one day. And she says, I don't know how you can commute from Winthrop for 15 years, And she says, that's it. So we started, we heard of a house that was available or coming on the market. We inquired, we bought the house. And we've been there for 17 years.
Wow.
And so beautiful.
So you're Lowellian now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I grew up in Providence, so I was born in Providence and stuff, and I still have a twin brother who lives there. I have a sister, my oldest sister lives in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and my son is in South Kingston, Rhode Island. So I go back there, 2 times a month, check in with everybody, see everybody, and we're close. My daughter is in Lexington, Kentucky. She works down there. So, so it's a constant. Now that I'm retired, it's nothing for me now. If I've got time, I just take a ride. I can do that. I go down, visit. With a lot of times I couldn't do that before. So, the main thing is staying healthy.
Do you visit the Cambodia town sometime?
Well, I break bread with my Cambodian friends. I've even had them over my house for my wine tastings.
Well,
recently I had Sakari Chow, Radi Mam. Okay, Sakari took Simone. She came over, and we had a nice champagne tasting that I put on. I wrote that column for the Boston Herald a couple of weeks ago, but they were my tasting panel. My wife was there, Mike and Judy Pigeon. We had a blast. Everybody brought a little food, and we just sat around the table, opening up different bottles of champagne and discussing about it. Naturally, after a while, when all those bubbles go to your head, you don't know what they're saying.
I was about to say, drinking and writing is not sure how much that's a good combination.
Well, you pace yourself, Soben. You pace yourself. You have water on the table and food. The food absorbs the alcohol. But when you do a tasting, you only do a little. Okay, because you want to get to the different bottles and ask people what they think. So then once we're done with that, they could drink as much as they want. But it's not as if you drink to become inebriated. You get a lot of food, and then after the tasting, we retired to the fireplace room where you bring out. My wife brought out all nice desserts and stuff, and Roddy Mom did his famous karaoke. He sang "Lady." Who was the
Cambodian song for you?
No, it's not Glenn Campbell. It was another. Was it Glenn Campbell? No, it wasn't Glenn Campbell. Who made that song famous? It was a country western style. It'll come to me. But he did a magnificent job. Very talented, Roddy Mom. I just love it. But it was a fun night. So I do that a lot. I invite my friends over. We open up different bottles of wine.
I never got invited. How about that?
You'll have to get on the list. You'll have to get on the list.
Some kind of special sign up, like a tier of certain.
Well, you have to work your way in. There's initiation. There's an initiation, 1-year initiation.
I see.
So we'll have to work you in if you're interested. If you have a good palate. Do you have a good palate for tasting wine?
I would challenge your palate.
Really? Okay.
But anyway, my interest probably would invite you to Cambodia town and let you have you do food tour and write about it. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That'd be nice.
Now, you tell me about the Cambodian wine industry. I mean, it's...
Not so much.
Yeah. Do they have a wine industry there? I mean, I have a bottle of Cambodian wine that I think it was Sakari or Kevin Coughlin brought back to show me the wine. Of course, I can't read the label, but it's a red wine. I haven't opened it, but I put it in a spot of where it could be seen next to my Italian Barolos. And so people always come in. It's like a conversation piece,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So.
No, Cambodian traditionally they only make rice wine.
Rice wine, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So any red wine ever made in Cambodia probably French influence.
Yes.
But I never heard of. We even have a winery in Cambodia. I don't think so. We have coffee plantation.
Yeah. Well, this had to be made. This was made in Cambodia, so there must be a small wine shop. And but you're right about that French influence. The Cambodian people drink. They grew up on Bordeaux and French wines and Champagne, cognac, and that's why they have a distinct knowledge and taste profile for Bordeaux, which is a very good wine, expensive wine, And
not all, but
not all, but the pictures I've seen from what some of the finer restaurants in Cambodia, they don't lack for some of the best Bordeaux and champagnes that France can produce. So there's a big connection still that remains between those two countries and the influence, you know.
Still, yeah, and a lot of hotels are boutiques owned by French.
Yeah.
As up to today, and restaurants.
Yeah. So I don't know. When was the last time you were in Cambodia?
2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you went to a restaurant, do they have California wines in the restaurant?
Not really.
Not
I don't
really?
think so. Just mostly French.
Yeah. How about Italian? No.
Not so much either. Would be
Yeah.
a lot heavily French. French wine.
I know the Australians export a lot to Southeast Asia.
They have some from Australian, yeah.
Yeah,
that's often we'll
which
see
is
that,
they've got some good wine and stuff.
Yeah.
But
when will you make a trip to Cambodia? Have you?
I've been asked several times. It just hasn't. I mean, I really am intrigued. I just haven't. The stars haven't aligned because. In the past, when I was working, the only opportunity I really had was to go in September and October. I like to travel off-season when the kids are back in school, so it's not as congested. So, and those were reserved to go to Italy, France, you know, and even take trips in you know, I've been out to Washington State twice to look at the wineries, Oregon, California. So a lot of what my wife and I do now are centered around wine, you know, wine trips and food. And so, but I would like to go. I've heard so many good things about it from my friends who've been there. And it seems very, very intriguing. I have a trip coming up in June. I'm doing the Rhine River Valley. So those nice German Rieslings, you know. So so I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to spend 3 days in Lake Como, Italy, which I was there about 14 years ago last time. It was absolutely fabulous. That's where Gianni Versace used to live, and then he gave it to his, after his death, he gave his chalet, which is beautiful in the mountains. He gave it to his niece. I think that was Donatella. So it'd be interesting to go back there. It's just so beautiful. You can see the Alps and the beautiful lake. The weather is nice, and then we're going to take the cruise, a small cruise ship, Viking, and we'll go through all the way, you know, to the Rhine, starting in Switzerland, all the way up to Amsterdam.
Sounds like a kind of a trip of a lifetime.
I think it should be. I'm looking forward to it and stuff. And I just, you know, in December I went to Portugal on a wine trip. Absolutely fascinating. I could live in Portugal. I believe you. Yeah. Especially the countryside. You get outside of Lisbon. The landscape. Now, it is a very hot country in the region Alentejo, where I was. It borders with the beaches, those nice southern beaches in Portugal. You know, then you get the Azores and stuff. But this is a rural agricultural zone. A lot of olive trees, cork trees, vineyards, animals, you know. They really preserve the land and they're into wildlife preservation and stuff. A lot of art, culture, heritage, and it's cheap. So your life now just immersed around wine and olives. Not bad. Any other thing that you like to share? Well, I'm helping out with the Lowell Regional Transit Authority. So part of my Pergola Communications, I've set up a messaging component, because I had to learn that from my business, how to use the social media platforms. I did some of that at work, but most of the time, you know, there were talented people who I depended to do that. So I knew some of it, but I took some classes. I taught myself Twitter, Facebook, And I learned all about that messaging. It helped me out in my wine business. But then it's also, I've done some projects for different people, small business people, okay, who needed to, either they were developing a website or to help out themselves with you know, communicating with clients, potential customers, and stuff like that. So, so the LRTA at the time, they got some grant money from some state, and they wanted to update their website. So I got in touch with Jim Scanlon, and I've been helping them 10 hours a week, doing some, you know, all there. We set up their accounts, Facebook, Twitter, and now I'm doing all, you know, community outreach with them, reaching out to the senior centers, the councils on aging, telling them about the you know, the new bus programs we have. We you know, had a Sunday pilot program that just was renewed by the state. The LRT never had a Sunday service. Well, now people in the greater Lowell area and the suburban communities that we serve, you can ride the bus all weekend, you know, and so promoting that, getting it out, you know, doing all that outreach and stuff. It's been fascinating because I didn't know anything about public transit prior to this, and I've been learning every day, you know, and the people over there are just fantastic.
And, you know, as an editor for a daily newspaper for 30 years, and now you doing social media thing, like, what's your take on that? Is the social media is going to take over the newspaper, like the rumor has it?
Well,
what do you think?
That's a good question. I think more and more newspapers are going to have to depend on digital. Certainly the Sun is moving in that direction as circulation continues to decline and the print publication becomes less and less viable. You know, they're going to have to restructure their business model, and it's apparent. You know, I think over 20,000 journalists have lost their jobs in the last 5 years. There's been a lot of newspapers that have closed or going out of business, and it's a very difficult industry right now. Now, if there is a glimmer of hope, I'm a contrarian. I think that you know, it might be 20, 30, 40 years from now, some teenager's going to wake up and say, gee, what was that thing people used to hold? My grandfather used to hold in his hand, or my grandmother. What was that? I want to read one of those, and maybe it'll start the cycle back again. But for right now, people are depending more and more on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook for their news, and I think that's dangerous. I think.
Last question: what is your opinion of my paper?
Well, I think it serves your community well. Okay, I can't read it because it's all in Cambodian. You do have a couple of pages in English, and you usually have a story in it. But it would be fun to know more about what is taking place in the Cambodian community. Unfortunately, you have to cater to the people who are interested in your publication, and that's the same thing why we never had a Spanish page or Khmer page in the Lowell Sun. It sounds good. You love to do it, but the investment in it, what is the return? So I think this serves a purpose. It's a fine publication for the needs of the community. If you're doing your job, keeping them informed of the news that they want to know, you'll be successful.
Well, I think that's it. We're coming to the end of our interview today.
Already?
Already 30 minutes. Well, thank you for puring up this talk. It's been really fun, and I think our audience enjoy to hear what you've been doing. Well, thank you for having me, and maybe we can do a wine tasting sometime right on your show. I would like that. Yeah, we'll have to check with Wendy. We may have some food. A little cheese and crackers. Too. Yeah. All right. Okay. Good. Well, that's it for today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and thank you, Jim, for being with me and have such a great talk. And we'll see you again in the next episode.